You're listening to Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast. I'm Turi, along with Marci Persky. I'm back from my vacation, during which I received a very strange phone call. Marci would prefer not to attend the Met Ball, but if she's ever invited, she has just the right jewelry and a victory in rural living. You're back from your vacation.
With a vengeance.
And I'm back, sort of, from my vacation. I don't even know where to begin. I got a call out of the clear blue sky. And normally, if it's not a phone number that I recognize, I do not answer it. But the small cutie was by himself, and I know he rides his bike everywhere. So I thought, oh, Lord, there's been a horrible bike crash, and someone is calling, some good Samaritan is calling to tell me that my kid is in trouble. So I answered it. And it was this guy who worked with me at the radio station years ago, where a certain very famous air personality threw me into a tape deck and called me a dirty effing kike. And,
really?
Yeah.
Well, I know this story.
And it turns out that the two people I held most accountable for not saving me from actually getting physically hurt were this guy and the fancy disc jockey's producer, neither one of whom lifted a finger to help me, even though I was being thrown into equipment and my hair was being pulled out by getting caught on this moving equipment. And they just kind of looked like it was some kind of TV show they were watching. I never wanted to have anything to do with any of them ever again. Obviously. Right. Well, the first thing that happened is one of my girlfriends became friendly with the Star's producer. And, you know, you can meet somebody in a different context. He always seemed like a really nice enough guy. He never seemed like the kind of person who would let me get killed without even saying to the host he worked for, hey, man, chill out. My friend knew him. And when my friend was sick, he had actually called an ambulance for her. So he had my phone number, which he gave to this other guy who, although he wasn't part of the Star's show, had been in the studio and seen the whole assault. And then,
yeah, so what, is he dying and now he's sorry?
You know, does that ever happen? Has anybody, okay, our two listeners of this podcast, if either one of you have ever had that happen where somebody calls and says, I'm on my deathbed and I really feel bad about that execrable thing I did to you 30 years ago.
And I would say, you're going to hell, buddy.
Yeah, it always happens in the movies like that. I keep
waiting for that. Yeah, it doesn't happen.
No.
Please forgive me.
No, never happens. If they even asked, I might have a chance to be magnanimous or small-minded. No. I didn't even get a chance to do either one of those things. First he calls, I don't know, maybe he was high, to tell me that he was just talking about me. And I'm thinking, why would you just be I have expunged. I wrote the book and I was done with, as they used to say in Kansas where I grew up, all of y'all. I was done. So why?
We still say that up here, by the way. Except we shorten it to all y'all.
First thing he says is, I remember bringing you cheesecake from this deli. And I'm thinking, I am racking my brains. And I'm thinking, I don't remember you bringing me so much as a paper clip. I don't remember you saying much of anything except hello and goodbye. And then he brings this up. He says, do you remember a guy named Hash Henderson? I said, yeah, I remember him.
He asking you for a reference.
He says, yeah, he was kind of mean to you one night. I'm thinking, yeah, he beat the crap out of me in the studio. I said, yeah, that's about accurate. He said, and I was there. And he said, and management asked me to write it up, a letter about it. Management asked you to write a letter. I should also mention that he doesn't.
He's doing it now.
Yeah.
How many years later?
No.
I'm putting this off.
The only useful piece of information that might have been interesting to me would have been, what did you say in the letter? So, of course, I asked him that. What did you say in the letter? Oh, I don't really remember. Let me see. You remember what kind of cheesecake you brought me? You remember all by yourself that this violent anti-Semite nearly killed me and choked me to death in the studio. You remember you were asked to write a letter, but somehow you don't remember what was in the letter.
talked to him a lot longer than I would
It's
have.
just, I was being very nice. Because when you're nice, sometimes people tell you stuff they didn't plan to tell you. So,
That's true.
so I said, well, do you remember the part where he called me a dirty and kike? He said, I didn't hear that. So now we've been talking for about like 5 or 10 minutes, and I want to ask, but for some reason I don't. What is your point? What is
Did
your
he ask you
point?
out on a date? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, does he think that you're rich now?
I don't. Yeah, I didn't even think about. I'm so far from
Is he
being
going
rich.
through his Rolodex and just calling people so he can purge the cards? Now I want to know. I want to know the motive.
I,
The thought behind this call.
I did ask. I said, well, can I ask the reason you were calling? He had no answer. It was the most confusing thing that has happened to me in years. Years. And then the rest of the trip was just as confusing.
Was the wedding delightful?
The wedding was gorgeous. The nice thing about weddings is that if they have a DJ, you start to realize like where in the musical timeline you stop knowing who was singing what. And then the next part of the musical timeline is you're unaware of the song altogether. And in the third part of the evening, when that music comes on, you think, I'm not sure I even know that this is music. And then you sit down.
Yeah, I have a kid that's constantly in the car next to me. So I listen to more top 40 than my adult self would prefer to.
Uh-huh.
But as a result of that, I do know all these artists and their songs. Whereas my husband, who's much younger than I am, and basically listens to the Grateful Dead and Dave Matthews Band, he has no idea. He sits through, like, say, the Grammy Awards and says, Who is this? Who is this? Who is this? And I'm like, dude, read the caption. It's closed captioned.
Yeah.
But yes, the whole music thing, and I like to annoy her by like today a song came on, which I knew who the artist was, but just to be an annoying mom, I said, so who is this? I'm trying to think, is this Post Malone? And she says, Mom, it's Ed Sheeran. They don't even sound alike. I said, I know. I just want to hear you yell.
See, I don't have that kind of ability to efface my ego as you do. I would need to prove that I knew that it was Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I just like to annoy her. It's fun.
It doesn't annoy my kids. I think the only reaction from my kids, if I actually know something pop culturally, is, Mom, you know that? As if I spend all my time chiseling words into little rocks and making my own soap.
Speaking of pop culture and chiseling little rocks, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but I have to tell you, with everything that's going on right now in the world,
Yes.
that's like makes me want to curl up in a little ball and
Yes.
hide under my bed.
Yes.
The last thing that I care about is who went to the friggin' Met Gala and what they wore. And the fact that people are angry because Kim Kardashian wore the exact dress that Marilyn Monroe wore when she sang Happy Birthday, Mr. President. And her mother wore the same dress that Jackie Kennedy wore when she realized that Marilyn Monroe and her husband were like doing the nasty. And that's all I can find as far as news goes.
What? Where do you live? What do you mean that's all you can find?
You know where I live.
Oh, come
it's
on.
Like, it's on
you have a
every
computer. I have managed.
I don't use a computer.
Then you have no excuse. As for the Met Gala, most of the people at it have never actually seen the museum they are supposedly supporting. So there's nothing.
It annoys me how much they spend. It annoys me on how much just basic things cost right now. I'm just annoyed. I'm a walking annoying person or a walking annoyance.
You are that too. It amazes me when people say, well, you just don't take fashion seriously. And my answer is, and why should I?
But I do.
Why should I?
I'm wearing my pajamas.
They've managed to convince people that all of this stuff is something that should be taken seriously.
Lately, I've just been really crabby about rich people and how they spend their money and how they have all of it. And I worry about power and buying up media and all that kind of stuff because I just worry.
I
And
just
it manifests itself into strange dreams. Like I have
dreams.
these stupid little, yeah, I have these stupid little hoop earrings that I wear basically all the time. And I've worn them for like a million years, and they're just little tiny hoops. Last night, I dreamed that I went to the Met Gala and I was wearing jeans and a shirt and my little earrings. And somebody walked up to me and said, "How dare you wear those earrings?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Those were Adolf Hitler's earrings."
Oh my
And I'm
God.
like, "What?"
What?
And I don't know how I got at the Met Gala. I don't know how I got Hitler's earrings. And now I don't want to put them on. I took them off this morning. I don't want to wear them anymore.
Okay, let's recap here. You've never been to the Met Gala. It's been decades
No.
since you've been to the Met. You're annoyed by the news coverage of it, which is all you
Yes.
claim, all that you can see in the remote mountain area in which you live. And you go to sleep. And while you're sleeping, you imagine that you have been thrown out of the Met Gala for wearing Hitler's earrings. And now you say, now you don't want to wear your earrings anymore. And you claim that the rest of the world is occupied with trivial things.
I think Hitler's earrings are kind of a big deal. Okay, so I passed a milestone while you were gone. We must discuss.
Okay, what happened?
Okay, so I think we've talked about this before, but for somebody who lives in the forest and camps a lot, I've never been actually able to successfully pee in the woods. It always gets all over me, all over my clothes.
Oh,
I always need extra clothes. Everyone makes fun of me, and usually have to change my shoes as well. I just have no aim. Okay.
okay. I thought you meant that you just couldn't make like shy bladder in the
No,
woods. You
no,
you
I
can
can't
pee
do
in
it
the
without
woods.
making a mess.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's a different
yes.
problem. Yes.
I'm a messy woods peer, and especially when I've been holding it forever. So I'm driving through the national forest on a really, really bad, what they call primitive road. And I had to pee the other day. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold up. I'm going to hold up till I get to civilization. I'm going to hold up. Finally, I couldn't anymore, right? And it was cold and it was windy, 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts.
Wow. In the
And
forest?
yeah, yeah, in
Oh,
the forest.
wow.
And the trees are like bending. It was pretty crazy cool. But I had to pee. So I pulled off one of those 2-track roads
Mm-hmm.
and looked around. And of course, there's nobody else driving through the forest with 50-mile-an-hour winds except me. And
And about 7,000 cats in your back seat, of course.
no, it was just me and my water bottle.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there's your
So,
mistake. The water bottle. If you hadn't had the
oh
water
yeah,
bottle with you,
I wouldn't have had to pee.
right.
But I successfully peed in the forest with 50-mile-an-hour winds without getting a drop of anything on anything I was wearing.
Woohoo!
Ta-da!
All right, but did you plan so that you peed in the direction of that the wind was blowing so that it would blow away from you, or did
Are
you
you
even
kidding?
give it that much thought?
No, I just leaned up against the biggest tree I could find.
You didn't calculate which side of the tree you should be on.
No, I don't know directions. You know that. But I was so happy to call Frankie and say, I just peed in the forest. And guess what? He said, you're on your way home to get new clothes. And I said, no,
I'm dry.
I'm dry.
You realize I
And it
have
only
to
took like 6+ decades to learn how to do
I
that.
have to ask you the worst question possible now.
Yes.
If a pea falls in the wilderness,
And does anybody hear it?
does it make a sound?
Well, up here, everybody drives with a roll of toilet
You
paper.
weren't supposed to actually answer that question.
We all drive with toilet paper in our cars
Of
and
course you
trucks.
do. Yeah.
Well, because places to stop are far and few between, as you found out when you were here.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of gas stations.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of big trees.
I bet there are a
Every
lot of
crowd.
people who accidentally use the spare gas can as a
Oh,
in it.
that's nasty.
Yeah,
And
well,
what would it do to your engine if you actually like forgot
we
and
shouldn't be
pretty dangerous?
asking these questions.
I
We should
know.
not be asking these questions.
I know. Well,
Oh,
maybe
I'm
one of
sure
our
there's
listeners can answer
some
them.
mechanic
My
somewhere.
brother.
One of
We're
our
gonna
two
hear from my
listeners.
brother.
Is he a mechanic?
No,
I thought he was a
band
musician.
director.
Yes.
He is. Uh, yeah, so that was my one exciting thing that's happened.
That is rather exciting. I mean, these small victories, I think.
Yes, that and the Met Gala.
You really cover both ends of the spectrum there, Marci.
Thank you. It's talent.
If you've made it this far, chances are you've been enjoying Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast. In which case, you might also like my book, She Said What? A Life on the Air. You can find that at your neighborhood independent bookstore or on Amazon. Marci and I really appreciate your good reviews wherever you care to leave them. Your kind words help the podcast grow. Thanks.